Hiya, Gemma Fisher here from Daybreak Dogs in North Somerset, here with the Friday Fisher Fix. We're trying it a bit later on this afternoon to see if we can be around for a bit more of your questions as we're going through this live. Hopefully last week you found those loose lead walking tips helpful. If you did, please comment on the page, and if you need any more information on that, then please don't hesitate to ask. This week we are going to be looking at a question that I received from one of my clients. She has both a beautiful spaniel, but she also has two cats, which are less keen on the spaniel than I am. And her question was, how does she stop these poor cats living in terror of this dog chasing them? So, ever one for promoting happy households. What we're going to look at today is what we can do to help that particular household be a lot happier. I suspect that there are other households up and down the country that are struggling either with that particular issue, or maybe things like the dogs getting overexcited and maybe chasing the children or jumping up, that sort of thing. So this particular video is going to be really helpful for all of those things. Right, so first off, how are we going to stop our dogs doing something? Well, as a positive reinforcement based trainer, I'm not going to try and stop my dog to do something, because that involves the use of some sort of aversive, like, I don't know, a choke chain, a shock collar, etc, etc, and I don't want to go down that route with my dogs. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to teach my dog to do something. I'm going to ask them to perform a different behaviour other than the one that I don't like very much. So the behaviour we're going to pick on for troubles around the house is we're going to teach our dogs to go on their bed, and we've got Max here demonstrating beautifully how much he loves his pillow. Now, the thing about teaching dogs to bed, most people when they teach their dogs to go onto their bed, they throw a treat onto the bed, the dog follows the treat, eats the treat, and person assumes that they've taught the dog to go on the bed. In actual fact, all you've really taught the dog to do is follow a treat. And what we want to do is we want to teach them that implicit in the word bed and the cue bed is the fact that you must remain on your bed until you hear otherwise. So my first tip for you all is actually to look at using a DVD called Crate Games by Canadian dog trainer Susan Garrett. It's one I recommend a lot to all of my clients because it's some really good games with your crate. Metal crate is best to start with rather than a soft crate, but some really great games for teaching self-control. So the things that go wrong with people using that DVD, because I have lots of my clients go and watch the DVD and then come back to me and say, oh, it didn't work. The reason it tends not to work is for a couple of reasons. One is the name of the DVD is Crate Games for a reason. So if you take them too seriously when you're playing them, your dog won't enjoy playing them, and neither of you will probably invest time in doing them. So first off, it has to be fun. Second off is we have to look at how we incorporate crate games into our everyday life. So if you're only going to play crate games as a training game, then you know what, when you're in training mode and you're looking at your dog and the dog knows that there's rewards on offer, then they're going to do it beautifully. But they might not do it so beautifully the rest of the time. Here's an example where I use crate games every single day. The back of my van is crated out for my dogs, so when they come out for their walk every day, then what they're going to get is I'm going to put my hand on the crate door as per Crate Games. Dogs are going to pop in a sit. Doesn't matter how excited they are, they're not allowed to leave those crates until they hear their release word. So that's an example of how it has to be part of everyday life. It's not just when we're playing training games. So second off, okay, so tip number 2. One of the things that can happen when we have household issues and everybody's getting a bit stressed is that actually we need to reduce everybody's anxiety levels a little bit. So really like a product called Pet Remedy, and it comes in 2 different forms. One is a little spray bottle, which is really handy, and you can actually spray this on the dogs and cats' beds. So it just helps reduce everybody's stress levels a little bit. Just a little spray bottle, which is really easy to use. Or just like those scent plugins that you can get at the supermarket, this one is actually designed to put a scent around the house, which makes the dogs and cats feel a lot calmer. So it's well worth plugging that in and using that to help just reduce everybody's stress levels a little bit as well. I have had some of my instructors tell me that it reduced their stress levels as well. So extra tip, you might find that on a busy day, it was worth putting that on as well. Right, so as I've been talking, my tip number 3 for you is you've got to make being on the bed worthwhile. So I have some homemade treats that I've made, which are, it's a recipe that's on the website actually. It's pilchard cake, and you can see Max seems to quite like this. He thinks this is a good game. So one of the things that I would get you to do for the next week, if you're having problems with particular issues at home and you want to make the bed a more rewarding place for your dog to be, is instead of just feeding your dog in their food bowl, you're actually going to give them their meals by hand feeding them on the actual bed instead. The other thing that you can do, as well as their normal kibble, because their kibble it's okay, but it could be more interesting, is you are going to use more delicious things like this. And each dog might be different. I have one dog that really loves fish at home. Ella really enjoys fish-based treats. And then Jade, you give her something fishy and she spits it out and looks like you've tried to poison her. So you have to pick whatever is your dog's drug of choice. So don't necessarily use the pilchard cake if your dog doesn't like fish. It won't work. It won't work. The other thing that you can do, if you do a lot of training by yourself and it's difficult to get family members involved, is you can use a specialist training machine, which I love, and I know we've just introduced you to and you thought was quite good. And it's something called the Manners Minder. And the Manners Minder, you put your dog's daily kibble into the compartment here, and what it does is you have a little remote control, and basically this dispenses treats while you're not there. And just because it's live, it's decided it's going to switch off. Let's see if we can get this switch back on, shall we? So what you would do is you would position this close to where you want your dog to be, and then what's going to happen is I can be talking to you over here, I can press this button, and it's going to dispense some treats for Max over there. So once your dog's got the hang of this, then this becomes a really worthwhile thing for them to do. We literally have just introduced this to Max and he's doing brilliant. But one of the things you do have to be aware of when you're doing it is to make sure that you're not training them to do this, which is to start banging the machine. One way I've got around this in the past is I've used like a wire crate, and what I've done is I've actually put it on top of the wire crate, taken this part out. She says, I don't want to break it. You know, that would be bad, wouldn't it? But you can actually take this piece off, believe me, it does come off, and then actually the treats can drip down straight into the crate, so the dog doesn't even need to come into contact with this. So if you have a dog who is inclined to try and help himself, then that can be a really useful way of using the Manners Minder. And I'll put a link in the comments below to where you can find the Manners Minder as well. Right then, oh gosh, where are we? Okay, so we're on to tip 3, I think, here. So whilst we're building value for the dog being on the bed, one of the things that we must do is we must manage any interactions between the cats and the dogs at home. Because if all the time you're trying to do this training, your dog is still getting the opportunity to chase the cats, then in actual fact, they're getting lots of reinforcement from doing that. So all of your hard work will be going to waste because in actual fact, your dog is still really enjoying chasing the cats. So the way that I manage things when I'm not comfortable with stuff going on at home is I get out the baby gates, I'll use crates, I'll use puppy pen if I need to, or even something like using a house line. So last week in the loose lead walking video, I had Max, didn't I? I know, I used you again. Wearing his harness, and then he had a long line from Tug Enough that just trailed along behind him. And you can use that in the house. So if you need to be able to step on that to stop a chase happening, then you can do that as well. And obviously separate feeding and sleeping areas is a good thing as well. So even if in the long run you want everybody to be very harmonious in the kitchen, maybe have everybody separate to begin with, because that will help as well while you're going through your training. Right then. Tip 4, okay, so Max, whilst I've been talking, has probably had about a quarter of this box, is that right? And a few more treats before, because we tried doing live video before, and technology was not playing ball, so he's had a few more than even the treats that you've seen him have now. So once you've built a lot of value for what you're asking the dog to do, you then want to see if you try and distract them from it, can they cope with you? Good boy, that's a really good boy. Can they cope with you trying to distract them? So trying to get them to make a mistake whilst they're performing that behaviour. So here I am throwing a treat out. Max is making a really good call. Instead of chasing the treat, which you know is synonymous to your cat walking past, he's actually made the decision to stay on his bed. And for staying on his bed, he's going to get a few more treats, including the one that went out there as well. Okay, so The thing about all behaviours is, if you only ever teach the dog to do it when they're calm, they'll do it beautifully when they're calm. But you know what? We want the dogs to do them when they're calm. We want them to be able to do them when somebody knocks at the door and somebody's coming in and you've got a visitor dressed in white that you don't want your dog to jump up at. You want the dogs to be able to do it when they're really, really excited. So make sure that you do throw in some question marks to make sure that the dog understands, that's really good, that they should be doing that. Now obviously with food, food is fairly straightforward, isn't it, to ignore? But in here, I have a tennis ball. Oh, it's a tennis ball. Good boy, that was really good. So what you would start to do is you would start to use maybe your dog's favourite toy and see if you could distract them with their favourite toy. So if I roll that out over there, oh, that's a good boy. That's it. Very good. And super. You can even have the tennis ball. He says, I don't want the tennis ball. I want the food. So it's got to be a toy your dog loves. Tennis balls are Vodka, my youngest border collie. Those are her drug of choice, definitely. But for Max, I think his favourite at this point is definitely the pilchard cake, isn't it? Hey, that's a good boy. So make sure you know also what your criteria is when you are testing the dog and asking them a difficult question. So my criteria for my dogs is, if I've got you in a bed, ideally we'd have one that maybe had a bit of an edge, and obviously with your crate it has an edge to it, so it's very easy to see, is the dog performing the bed behaviour or is it hanging out over its bed. So what we ideally want is that when we feed, we're looking to feed back on the bed, so the dog's attention is always being brought back to that bed. All right, so if dog even moves a little bit, you can have that one back there. Oh, it went in your hair. There we go. Good boy. Then you know that they've broken criteria. So they must have all of their feet in the bed to make it a fair, to get rewarded. Okay. So last bit, I have so many bits to go through with this, and if anybody has any questions, then feel free to write them in the comments as we're going through, and I'll try and answer those at the end. The last tip for you is, once you've built up your dog's behaviour to what you would like them to do, i.e. chill out on your bed, watch comings and goings and be nice and quiet on the bed, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to work on your cats, and I want you to say to them, you know what, it's worth coming back into that room where the dog was. Dog's not going to chase you anymore because I have somebody there, you know, maybe feeding pilchard cake like I'm doing now. And you want to find something that cats really, really love. So it might be like, my cats really used to like things like tins of tuna, or the tins of pilchards and that sort of stuff. Something that's really smelly will normally get cats. Actually, I remember now, one of the things my cats loved was catnip. So if you haven't tried catnip with your cats, maybe don't do it in the front of the dog to start with, because they go a bit giddy and a bit silly, but that might be one for a future test a little bit later on down the line. Yes, so you want to encourage your cats that coming back into the room with the dog is a really good thing. What you're going to do is you're going to have two people at that point. One of them is going to be dealing with the cats and encouraging the cats and giving them confidence in coming in the room, while the other person works with the dog and making sure that the dog's getting loads of reward while the cat is coming in the room. Because what you want your dog's default to be is, when cat comes in the room, I should head to my bed, and that's when I'm going to get loads of yummy rewards. Okay. Loads more yummy rewards than I will for chasing the cat. That might get you told off, mightn't it? I know, it might get you told off. Right, so the essence of what you want the dogs to do is to get to the point where they are just so happy to be on their bed that you can pretty much do anything. I've done this with dogs in home visits before now, where when I first arrived, they were all over me like a rash. They were like, oh my God, Auntie Gemma's come to my house to see me. But by the end of it, they were sitting in a crate, just like, yeah, I'll, you know, have a nice evening, watching me walk out the door, happy to stay in their crate. Okay, so crate games really do work if you play them consistently, and you make sure that the dog really, really loves the games. So they're not just exercises; they really are games. Right then, so I think that was all the tips. Was that all the tips, Max? He said, oh no, is it the treat finishing? It's the treat finishing. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to let me know how you get on with some of the tips that I've given you in this video, because I want to make sure that the stuff I'm giving you is helpful to you. And if it needs any further clarification, then let me know by just writing a comment on the Facebook page, or even post a video. If it's not working, you're not sure why, post a video and let's see if we can figure it out together why things aren't working. And if you have a question that you'd like me to answer in a future Fisher Fix video, then what I'd like you to do is post a question on the Daybreak Dog Facebook page, put the hashtag fridayfisherfix afterwards, and then when I'm looking for inspiration for what to talk about in the videos, I can go to that hashtag and it will bring up all of the questions that you guys have asked, okay? Right, if you would like to keep in touch further and make sure that you don't miss any of these Fisher Fixes, and also the blog posts that I write, which have lots of useful information in as well, then please do sign up for our mailing list. If you go to the Facebook page, you should see a little button that says sign up, and that will take you to the sign up page for that, so you'll be kept in touch. And I guess it's that's pretty much us done for the day. So what we're going to say is thank you for watching. Have a great weekend and enjoy your dogs. See you next Friday. Bye.